I ran for U.S. Senate in Virginia in 2020. It started in 2019, leading into the 2020 primary. I knew that there would be headwinds from the establishment parties, whether Democrat establishment party or the Republican establishment. I knew there would be headwinds, right? Because I was a new face, regardless of my credentials or whatever. You know, if you aren't a donor, if you haven't knocked doors, and if you haven't served in the party, they don't support you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I knew that there would be headwinds for that. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost impossible to get elected the way the modern political system works, and I knew that going in. But I did a whole lot of investigating, and I overcame several obstacles that they put in my way on purpose. The Republican Party of Virginia specifically put obstacles in front of me to try and keep me from even getting on the ballot. So what I realized these elections are not actually about the general election. It's actually about the nomination. Because if you can control the nomination, then you control who's going to win either way. And that's why, if you look at, say, the Trump situation, where there were so many Republicans, long-toothed Republicans, long beard, gray beards, as we call them sometimes, in the Republican Party. But here comes this guy who's, an outsider, and he basically browbeat everybody off the stage.
Mm-hmm.
And that upset the apple cart, because what that did was that threw the whole party into chaos, because he had the nomination for the party, but he's not really a member of the party in their minds. And so that was the same kind of situation with me, except I was able to overcome some of the party obstacles. Like they tried to, and they still were successful in some ways. They try and keep you even off the ballot in the primary. That's what they want, because if they can keep people off the ballot, then they can control who wins the nomination. And ultimately, that person is already controlled by the party before they ever are actually running for office.
Give me an example, Thomas. How do they keep somebody off the ballot?
By not telling them things, by making it really difficult to find out information, like, for example, the signature process, or how much money it costs, or when do you have to have the money to pay to run the race. They deliberately make that information really difficult for people to find, because then they can control who gets the information and then ultimately control who gets the nomination. Okay. So novices can't just, run and just jump into the race and, drop a few $1,000s and get 10,000 signatures, and then all of a sudden you're on the ballot. Okay. They do other things as well. Like, for example, they say that the first person that brings their signatures in is going to be first on the ballot, and then they won't accept signatures until a specific date. But in my case, they already made an arrangement with my opposition to accept his signatures, even though he wasn't done yet. So they said, oh, well, we've already spoken to this other candidate, so we're not going to accept yours. What they ended up doing was they tried to basically say that their chosen candidate was going to be the first on the ballot. Well, when I knew they were going to try and do that, because I had worked with several other candidates prior to that. And so I made sure that I was standing at the door with all of my ballots perfectly, or all of my signature sheets perfectly organized, so that I could overcome that obstacle. Well, then what they did was since we made this verbal agreement with this other candidate, we're going to do a random drawing. But that isn't what the rules were. The rules were The first person to drop off their signatures was the one that gave me on first on the ballot, because it's an automatic bump on the primary vote if you're first on the ballot. Trying to establish is the need for voters to understand the criticality of the nomination process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because the voter turnout is deliberately kept low by the parties. Because if the voter turnout in a primary is low, they don't have to influence as many people. It's cheaper, basically, to buy the nomination if you have fewer people getting information that there is even a primary that day. Mm-hmm. So what we did was we created a process to identify the candidates that were running in each race, reach out to those candidates, conduct an interview with each of those candidates in a given race. And that interview is what we call a vetting board, because we are vetting them against our values as Chasing Freedom Virginia. We're not a Republican organization or a Democrat organization, because we will report the information across the spectrum. We rated all of the conservatives and we rated all of the liberals. We didn't exclude anyone. We gave everyone a rating. Now, their rating isn't a very, they can't really do very well if they don't participate in the interview process, because we have to go do the research. And, I'm very clear about the fact that I will make sure I have given you ample opportunity to participate in the vetting process so that you can express your position. If you don't want to participate and you think you can overcome that, fine, that's great. But we have one of the largest audiences in Virginia for people who are looking for information on Canada. The vetting board is basically between 3 and 7 members of Chasing Freedom Virginia that sit for an hour and a half with each candidate, and we record the entire interview. We go over, I want to say it's 11 topic areas that are relevant to our coalitions. In that hour and a half, we record all their answers, and then each of the members of the panel of the vetting board rate those answers against our values in secret. So only they know what they are scoring somebody. And then they give those scores to 2 members of the executive committee. And the executive committee then compiles the results for each of the outcomes for each candidate. We keep that information in secret until 30 days before the primary. And then on the same day, we reveal we're gonna release all of the videos and all of the vetting results for how the candidates ranked in our vetting process. Now, last year, this was our first year doing it. The methodology was correct, but I think the presentation of the data had some flaws in it, because I rated conservatives as being positive up to a +5, and I rated liberals as basically being up to a -5, right? And that really wasn't the vision in the beginning. I really want to present something that is, and we're going to be adjusting our presentation this year. It's going to be a thermograph of how far is a person to the right in a red spectrum, and how far is a person to the left in the blue spectrum, using the same scoring, but there won't be a raw number. There'll be, where is the candidate on a spectrum of ideology between the extreme left and the extreme right? And the extreme left would be, clearly somebody who has advocated for socialism, somebody who's advocated for communism or whatever. And on the extreme right, you would have, somebody who's a pure nationalist that wants all immigrants to go home, that kind of a thing. And so our scoring wasn't really as good as it could have been last time, because we had to go through the process once to kind of find out how we could improve it. Over the course of, and we've already started compiling all of the contact information for all of the candidates. When I reach out and I invite the candidates to participate in our interview process, as soon as they agree to it, we will set up a date for the interview. We'll set up a panel that it's multiple people in secret rating the candidate, and then those results are assessed, and we publish those results, but for every candidate all on the same day with the video. So I think what's going to happen is, and we couldn't do the publishing of the videos last time because we just weren't set up yet, but we are going to make sure we do it this time. What I'm envisioning happening is, as people are making their final decision on candidates, they will be able to look at what's on Chasing Freedom Virginia, whether you're on the right of the spectrum or on the left of the spectrum. My hope is that we have Democrats and Republicans, that we have Virginians looking at the results, whether you're going to vote for a left candidate or you're going to vote for a right candidate, and you're looking at the results. And then you say, okay, well, I like these 2 from their survey, but I don't really, they're kind of close to me. I don't really know. I'm going to go watch just these 2 interviews. And then they watch those 2 interviews and they be like, wow, I really liked his demeanor, her personality. I really liked how they weren't afraid of the questions. There's going to be another substantive personal assessment will be able to be made, because they'll be able to review the interviews themselves.
So Thomas, couple questions. You did this in this last election cycle for governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. You didn't do it? You didn't do it for the delegates?
No, we couldn't do it for the delegates.
That's too much, right?
Okay. Yeah, well, but the reality is, if we get this the way we want it, that should be no problem, because
Absolutely.
we should have thousands of people who can do these interviews, and they're actually what I call a structured interview. A structured interview means everybody gets exactly the same questions, asked exactly the same way, no leading questions. They're all open-ended. And it's designed to be somewhat provocative in some cases, but at the same time to elicit from the interviewee what they really believe about an issue, as opposed to just, are you for abortion or are you against it? Are you red or are you blue? I want to know what you think about the abortion issue, not just I'm a Republican, so I'm against it, and I'm a Democrat, so I'm for it. You know what I mean? Like, that's not, these issues are very, very complex. The problem is the American people don't have the bandwidth. They don't have the bandwidth time-wise to do the necessary research to cull between, say, 8 congressional candidates for the 7th district in Virginia. Minimum, they got to go to 8 events, maybe 16 events. I mean, people just can't do that. They can't do that.
Thomas, you're talking about, if you're going to an event, it's not typically set up for a thoughtful discussion where the person gets sort of unlimited time to share their viewpoints, right? I mean, that's just not how that works. It's a gladiator.
You get 30 seconds. You get 30 seconds to answer a question, and then they go on to the next candidate. 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds. That was fine back in the day when that was the only means of communication, was face-to-face. Okay, but now we have the internet. Things can be recorded. That's why we're doing it the way we're doing it, with recording the interviews, releasing all the interviews on the same day with the scores. And we're doing that 30 days before the primary, so that people can then take 30 days and look at the videos. Our target date is 30 days away. And then what we're going to do is 15 days actually before the primary, the membership of Chasing Freedom Virginia is going to vote, ranked choice voting, if necessary. We're going to do ranked choice voting on the candidates. And then we do an endorsement.